is one of the most important things we can do on the planet.
Yes.
Is getting every voice into the mix and to be heard. And I think facilitation is one of the best and most powerful ways to do that.
How do we engage more and more people to have greater wisdom and understanding?
Yeah, this group wisdom I think is really important. And a lot of people don't understand that these tools exist.
Yes.
That we want them to know that they can be at their disposal. We want them to have, experiences
So
of it.
how do people hear stories about facilitation methods and what they can do and what they bring to different situations?
Yeah, or experience it even in a sort of a demonstration perspective, or letting facilitators come into different organizations and demonstrate how they work. But I think on a large level, letting people know that these new processes, these facilitation methods that are not the old way of thinking, are incredibly necessary for us to move forward and be more connected with one another, and not, opposite sides and thinking you're different than me. So we need to be, protective of one another. How do you get people, this large group dialogue of people with very diverse ideas and backgrounds and perspectives?
We need to be able to collaborate well together and get more clarity on what our group and vision is for the way we want to create and move forward and custom design how we're going to live.
Yeah, so bigger picture, I think it's an awareness piece. It's really letting people know that these exist.
It's possible to do something in a different way.
Yeah, make that possibility known. We've been in this idea that there are certain people we pick out as leaders and we teach them how to lead. But now everybody has to know how to be a really good leader and a really good follower equally. This type of leadership program is imperative if we're going to do great collaboration, if we're going to get these things that we really are wanting to move towards, and create a world that becomes more sustainable.
I worked for 9 years as the Director of Training for the Mediation Center in Asheville. And in that role, I trained people in mediation, conflict resolution, and facilitation. And what we did in facilitation was just, from my point of view, facilitation is working with a group of people when there's an issue that's controversial and helping them to come up with some kind of a resolution that meets most people's needs the most satisfactorily. If you're going to dive into conflict resolution, you have to be prepared to deal with feelings. It's really simple, and not be uncomfortable in the face of feelings, and be able to allow people to have their own feelings without taking them on as your responsibility. So my colleague that I love, that I worked with for many years, used to say she walked in with her little invisible shield around her. Teaching facilitation is, you can only do so much until you support people in practice. One of the things I loved about the way we did mediation training here in North Carolina, which was not true in Georgia, is that we always mediated in pairs. So a new mediator would always co-mediate with an experienced person. And that's really important if you're going to have people learn, because you can teach people and they can role play and all that, but it's until you get in a room with people who have feelings, it's all theoretical. I think people need to practice. I think it's illegitimate to give training without providing opportunities for practice, and practice should be done in pairs where one person has more experience than the other. Facilitation for me is about working in situations where there's a variety of points of view and people see things really differently, and they need to be able to hear each other and understand each other and feel validated, so that whatever decisions are made in the context of the validity of everybody's point of view. This, being able to talk to each other and listen to each other and find common ground, is the technology of the future. Anything else is going to fail without these skills.
And I've been facilitating group processes for about 25 years. I've been trained in a number of different tools: open space technology, search conference, appreciative inquiry, World Cafe, blueprint of we. So how do you create energy within a group? The first way is there has to be participation. You have to create ways for people to participate, engage, talk to each other. Secondly, I find that there has to be choice. That if people feel like they don't have choice, they're not going to be energized. They're not going to be committed to the outcome. If they're there because they feel like they have to be there, they're not going to be effective. And to give an example, open space technology. One of the key principles in open space technology is the law of 2 feet, which means if you're in a group and you're not learning or not contributing or not enjoying yourself, go someplace else. Use your feet to go someplace else. When you can create a container in which people feel like they have that choice, it changes the whole dynamic. We've all been in those meetings where everybody's sitting there thinking, I don't really want to be here, but I have to be here. And that is so draining to any group work. One of the ways to create change within a group, within a team, within an organization is change relationships. And that, for me, is a lot of the work what you're doing with groups is how do you change the relationships? How do you get people to understand each other, be heard and hear each other? It's changing the dynamics within groups from this hierarchical structure where there's somebody at the top dictating what's going to happen, and there's some participation, but it's still the old dynamic of the top down. And where I've seen the most power, the most things getting done are these groups where people are empowered, they have choice, and so they're contributing their full person, their whole person. And there are these tools that allow you to structure an environment that can create a container in which this can happen. This is the only kind of environment I want to be in, and if I can't, I'm going to start organizations that is the whole foundation of the organization. This is how we're going to work. This is how we're going to treat each other in this more open and transparent, authentic way, bring our full selves, and say, this is what I want. If you don't want that, I understand, but go someplace else. And
in nonviolent communication, which guides my work, we really value helping people learn new ways of communicating. So using words that will create connection rather than words that can create division. Words that take us out of the paradigm of blame and shame and into the paradigm of connection. For me, very exciting application of facilitation based in nonviolent communication is when we bring together diverse and often divergent groups to have dialogue and connection and to transform a conflict that has arisen between them into a shared dilemma. I can also see creating a model within this facilitation program that will really empower people working in the sustainability world, really help them learn how to facilitate in ways that are less leader-focused and much more focused on developing shared input from everyone.
I have been doing playback theater for over 20 years. Playback is an international form of improvisational theater, basically, primarily, based on people coming up and telling their personal stories. And the stories we hear, while they're at one point individual stories that each person tells their own experience, the way it happens with playback theater is as you listen, you begin to see that your story relates to my story, relates to the bigger story. So the whole gestalt of playback theater is one of creating community, creating understanding, creating empathy, understanding different perspectives, and facilitating connection. So this process of revealing yourself through story, and it doesn't have to be a big story, it can be just a simple exchange, and then trusting that to be heard deeply and created into some other form artistically means that you get instant feedback about being accepted and being honored and having your experience validated.
So any part of a governance system involves how you make decisions together. And so there are processes for making decisions in Circle Forward. There is a principle by which decisions are made, which is the principle of consent. And so how you get diverse groups to consent to plans and actions to move forward, you need facilitation, usually, and you need processes that a group can follow. We live in a very complex world, and so there are many diverse viewpoints oftentimes at the table. So how do you create an inclusive process that gets you to a decision that everyone can buy into with consent and move forward? Many groups who need to have the buy-in of a lot of different diverse perspectives. A lot of different people need to be bought into what we're moving forward with. And there's lots of documentation that tells us that when people are bought into a solution, that the implementation of that solution is much easier. So people can make decisions really quickly and they can pay for it for years. And we have lots of examples in Asheville and everywhere of people who live with the consequences of steamrolling over each other. They live with those consequences for years. So much better to take a little bit of time at the front end and go through a good process.
Our vision for healthy power and consent and facilitative leadership, a culture of leadership and culture of facilitative collaboration is that would help us get to a culture, a global and national and regional culture that's inclusive and participatory and fair and equitable.
And making, as a result,
more prosperous,
better decisions, solving some of our complex issues.
Becoming more resilient, becoming more adaptive, becoming healthier in general. And you know, there's no reason for us to come out on the other side of this transformative time that we find ourselves in right now. There's no reason for us to come out on the other side having less health and fun and peace and prosperity. We can totally come out of it having more connection, more prosperity, more health. And that's how do we come together, and how do we work together and make decisions together. Facilitation is key.
It's facilitative leadership
Required and facilitative leadership.